You and I are stepping into a different kind of landscape now. The Sumerian city-states were a mosaic. Akkad is where that mosaic is pulled into a single shape. This episode is about scale, about how power stretches outward, what it gains, and what it risks losing. We will not claim final truth. We will follow the evidence and the patterns it suggests, and we will be careful about what remains debated. Begin with the name, Akkad. We still do not know exactly where its capital, Agade, stood. That alone tells you something. This was the center of an empire, yet its precise location remains uncertain. That uncertainty is not failure. It is a reminder that archaeology works with incomplete maps. We can see the empire in inscriptions, in administrative records, and in the spread of a language, even when the capital itself hides. The traditional figure at the start is Sargon of Akkad. The dates for his reign are usually placed around the late 24th to early 23rd century BCE, but exact chronology varies by scholarly framework. The key point is not the number, it is the shift. Under Sargon and his successors, a new political idea takes shape, a single authority over multiple city-states. That is a major change from the Sumerian pattern. To understand what that means, imagine a network of cities that had always managed their own gods, their own grain, their own rivalries. Now imagine a central authority that claims to be responsible for all of them. It is not only a military conquest, it is an administrative transformation. Records become broader, taxes become imperial, the language of legitimacy changes. One of the clearest indicators of this shift is language. Akkadian, a Semitic language, begins to spread and acquire prestige. Over time, it becomes a language of administration and literature. It does not erase Sumerian at once. Instead, the two languages coexist for centuries. But Akkadian rises to a new role. It becomes the imperial language of record, and later, a major lingua franca across the Near East. This is a subtle kind of conquest, not just of territory but of paperwork. This is the second thread to hold. Empire is as much about coordination as it is about war. Armies can take a city, but only administration can keep it. Akkad's power is visible not only in victory stele, but in the standardization of records, the consistency of seals, and the geographic reach of its inscriptions. Now let's look at one of the most striking rulers, Naram. He is remembered for military campaigns, but also for a different kind of shift. In inscriptions, he is described with divine language. The line between king and god grows thinner. This is not simply vanity, it is a political technology. If the empire is to hold, the king must be more than a regional ruler. He must be a cosmic center. This is a deep change in how authority is presented. If you imagine the psychological effect of that, you can see the stakes. The more power is centralized, the more the center must justify itself. Divine kingship is one answer, but it is not the only answer, and it comes with risks. If a ruler is framed as a god, then failure becomes cosmic. The system becomes less flexible. And in a region as volatile as Mesopotamia, flexibility is a form of survival. We should be careful here. Much of what we know comes from texts that were themselves political. Royal inscriptions are not neutral reports. They are statements of legitimacy. That is true for Sumer, and it is even more true for Akkad. So we read them as evidence, but we do not treat them as perfect mirrors of reality. The empire's reach appears wide. There are records and inscriptions that show influence beyond Mesopotamia itself. This is where the historical record suggests Akkad's sway extended into neighboring regions, with garrisons, trade routes, and political control. Yet here again, our confidence is about patterns, not about absolute certainty. The empire's boundaries shift, and they likely changed over time. Now let's talk about the people who made this system work. Bureaucrats, scribes, administrators. When an empire expands, it needs a nervous system. The nervous system is the archive. Clay tablets do not just record grain, they record the existence of a state. The more tablets you find, the more you can infer about how the system operated. In that sense, the archive is the body of Akkad. But bodies can be stressed, and here we reach the most debated part of the Akkadian story, its decline. There are multiple theories, and none should be treated as a single answer. Some scholars emphasize political instability, including rebellions and external pressures. Others highlight environmental stress, including evidence of regional drying around the time of Akkad's decline. There is a proposed climate event around 42,000 years ago that may have affected rainfall patterns in Mesopotamia. The key word is may. Evidence suggests correlation, but causation is debated. It is tempting to look for a single cause. The evidence does not support that simplicity. Empires rarely collapse from one factor. They strain under multiple pressures at once. A stressed environment can magnify political weakness. A contested succession can magnify external threats, and overextension can magnify everything. Here is the most careful way to hold it. The Akkadian Empire appears to have declined in a period of increased stress, including possible climatic aridification, internal fragmentation, and external incursions. The exact balance between those forces is still debated. That uncertainty is not a failure of history. It is the honest boundary of what we can say. What happens afterward is equally important. The decline of Akkad is not the end of Mesopotamian civilization. It is a transformation. New powers rise. In the south, Sumerian traditions return in new forms. In the north, Akkadian language and administrative practices persist. The empire leaves behind a template. Even when the political structure falls, the administrative logic remains. Think about the effect of that template. It means that later states can inherit a ready-made system of governance. It means that the idea of empire, one center, many cities, does not vanish. It becomes a model, and that model will be used again and again in Mesopotamia. This is why Akkad matters. It is not only the first empire in the region, it is a demonstration of how scale changes everything. It shows that power is not only about conquering a city, but about keeping records, enforcing standards, and projecting legitimacy across distances. And it also shows the cost. The larger the system, the more vulnerable it is to disruption. The same networks that spread authority can also spread instability. The same roads that carry goods can carry invaders. The same centralization that creates order can create fragility. There is a quiet continuity between this and our previous episode. Sumer taught us how cities organize themselves. Akkad teaches us what happens when an organizer tries to oversee many cities at once. It is a leap in scale, and with scale comes new kinds of risk. If you stand back, you can see the arc. Sumer creates the tools of organization: writing, temple economies, administrative memory. Akkad takes those tools and turns them outward, building a state that stretches across a region. That is why the Akkadian period is both a culmination and a beginning. It is the moment when Mesopotamia becomes more than a collection of cities. It becomes an empire. The questions that follow are the questions of recovery. What does a region do after an empire? How does it rebuild stability without losing the lessons of scale? That is where our next episode begins. We move into the period of restoration known as Ur-III, where the old city of Ur becomes a new center and bureaucracy reaches an even finer level of control. So as you leave this episode, hold the tension in your mind. Empire brings order and vulnerability at the same time. Akkad's legacy is not only conquest. It is the blueprint of how large states think, and the warning that no blueprint is permanent.